All right, let's dive in. Today we are tackling one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, sometimes feared concepts in all of programming, pointers in C++. Now, they have a reputation for being a bit tricky, but I promise, by the end of this you'll see them not as a challenge, but as a genuine superpower. So, let's get to it.
Okay, so we've all written code that looks something like this, right? We're making a variable, we're calling it initial, it's a char, and we're sticking the letter A inside it. It helps to think of this like having a little box, slapping a label on it that says initial, and then just placing the letter A inside. Simple enough.
But have you ever really stopped to think about where that box actually is? I mean, it's not just floating around in some digital cloud, it has a very specific physical location inside your computer's memory. And asking that one question, well, that's the key to unlocking this whole idea of pointers. So, to find our little box, we've got to figure out its secret address. Just imagine your computer's memory is this enormous city street with millions, and I mean millions of houses, and every single one has its own unique address. Every piece of data you create, every variable, it lives in one of those houses. You see, every variable you make really has two key things about it. First, there's its value. That's the letter A living inside the house. But second, and this is the important part, it has its memory address, the unique street number for that house, something like 651011. Pointers are the tools that let us work directly with that address.
So how do we actually get our hands on these addresses and start using them? Well, for that, we need a special kind of variable that's built for this exact job. It's time to introduce the star of our show, the pointer.
You know, a pointer is really just another type of variable, another kind of box. But here's the twist. Instead of holding a value like A or the number 42, its only job is to hold the memory address of another box. It's kind of like a sticky note where you just write down the address of a friend's house so you can find it later. That's all it is. And the cool thing is, making one is super simple. We just use this little asterisk. When you write int p, you're basically telling the computer, hey, can you make me a new box named p? And this box is special. It's designed to hold the address of an integer's house. Right now, it's just an empty placeholder, ready and waiting for an address.
Okay, so we have our special address-holding variable. Now what? How do we actually use it? Well, to read the map, C++ gives us two really important tools, two operators. You can think of them like a GPS. One button finds an address, and the other button says, okay, go to that address.
First, we have the ampersand, the and symbol. This is your find address button. When you stick this in front of a variable, like and v1, you're not asking what's inside the v1 box. You're asking, what is the street address of the v1 box? It gives you back that unique number.
And now for our second tool. And yeah, it's the asterisk again. I know, this is where things can get a little tricky because we just saw it used to declare a pointer. But when you use it in front of a pointer that already exists, it does something totally different. It becomes the value-at operator, or what we call the dereferencing operator. This is your go-to-location button.
And here is where it all clicks into place. So we use the ampersand and v1 to get the address of v1, and we store it in our pointer p1. Then we can do something pretty incredible. Look at this. By using the asterisk on p1, we can say, go to the address inside p1 and change the value there to 42. We've just modified v1 without ever touching it directly. How cool is that?
This is a really powerful idea, this ability to indirectly get at memory. But so far, we've only pointed to variables that we already made. So what happens when your program is running and you suddenly realize, shoot, I need a new box for some data, but you didn't plan for it ahead of time? Well, that brings us to creating memory on demand.
See, the memory we've been using up to now is what we call static. It's like a pre-planned neighborhood. All the house lots are marked out and fixed before anyone even starts building. But a lot of the time, your program needs to be way more flexible. That's where dynamic memory comes in. It lets you ask for new memory to build new houses while the program is actually running. And this all happens in a special zone called the heap. Managing this dynamic memory is a pretty simple three-step cycle. First, you request a new chunk of memory with the new keyword. Second, you use that memory with your pointer, just like we've been doing. And third, and this part is absolutely critical, you have to release that memory back to the system using the delete keyword when you're done with it.
Let's watch it happen. So, in step 1, we make a pointer p. Then this line, p equals new int, is basically our code knocking on the operating system's door and saying, hey, I need enough space on the heap for one integer, please.
The system finds an empty spot, reserves it for us, and then hands us back the address which we store right inside.
Now for step 2, putting something in our new house. We use the exact same tool as before, the dereferencing operator. Star p equals 99 means we follow the address that p is holding, go to that new spot on the heap, and place the value 99 inside. We just successfully stored data in a memory location that literally didn't even exist when our program first started.
And now for that super important final step, the cleanup. Once we're all finished with that memory, we have to call delete p. This tells the system, hey, I'm done with the house at this address. You can knock it down and let someone else build here. If you forget this step, you create what's called a memory leak. It's like an abandoned, locked house that no one can ever use again, just wasting precious space. So you might be asking, why go through all this trouble? Well, because this direct control over memory, this is a real programming superpower, especially when we start working with big, structured blocks of data, like arrays.
This is where the true power of pointers just shines, because in C++, they are deeply, deeply connected to arrays. An array, when you get right down to it, is just a block of memory where all the items are stored one right after the other, in a line. Think of it like a row of identical houses built right next to each other. If you know the address of the very first house, it's super easy to find the second, the third, and so on.
And this right here, this brings us to a huge aha moment for so many programmers. The name you give an array, like numbers in this example, it isn't just a label. In C++, the name of an array basically acts as a constant pointer that is always holding the memory address of its very first element. The name is the starting address of that row of houses.
And this code just proves it perfectly. Look, if we just print the array name numbers, we get back a memory address. But if we dereference it with star numbers, what do we get? We get the value at that address, 10, the very first element. And check this out. Star numbers plus 1 literally tells the computer, go to the starting address, move one house down the street, and tell me what's inside. And boom, it correctly gives us 20. This is called pointer arithmetic, and it is incredibly fast and efficient.
So what's the big takeaway here? Why does all this matter? Well, pointers give you raw power. They give you direct, fine-grained control over your computer's memory. This leads to unbelievably efficient ways to handle data, especially when you're passing huge arrays to functions. And maybe most importantly, really understanding pointers is the bedrock for building and using more complex data structures, things like linked lists, trees, and graphs. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In today's world, with all these smart languages that handle memory for us automatically, is this kind of deep control still an essential skill, or is it maybe just a relic of a bygone era? That question, right there, gets to the very heart of the trade-off between modern convenience and fundamental power. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.